We're talking about transportation today. So in regards to, how many bus drivers the Palm Beach County School District has, do you know how many bus drivers we currently have?
We have over 400 bus drivers, yes.
And how many openings are there currently?
We still have just over 120 openings, so we're continuously looking for people.
So how crucial are those openings? I mean, you said you have almost 400, but you guys have so many schools in the district.
We have so many schools to cover. One of the fortunate things that we have is that we have some of our office staff, the people who are dispatchers, coordinators. They also have CDLs, so they can drive buses. Some of our mechanics have CDLs, so they can drive buses as well. So we have all the routes covered, but we still need additional staff in order to make sure we have people to cover when we have absences at schools or absences with bus drivers.
And I know when it comes to bus drivers and covering routes, there are a couple bus drivers who have spoken with us who have said, they're covering more than one route. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when we have people who are absent for whatever reasons, a lot of them very legitimate reasons, people get sick and have emergencies. So we do have bus drivers that have to cover for each other because we don't have enough bus drivers to have bus drivers in reserve when we do have absenteeism. So from time to time, we do have bus drivers have to cover two routes. We have to go back and double back for a second route to make sure we get all the kids picked up.
And how often are these additional routes a thing for bus drivers?
It varies. Some days it could be it won't happen for multiple days, and then sometimes it'll be 2 days in a row, or sometimes it's in the morning and the afternoon. It just varies on what the attendance is for that particular day.
And when it comes to picking up additional routes, I know some bus drivers have voiced that they're picking up more than one additional route. So what's kind of the typical, when someone calls out sick, how many additional routes kind of are engaged per bus driver?
Well, it's usually only one additional route per bus driver. I don't want to make light of it though, but it is additional work for them to have to do. They do get paid overtime for it, and they're asked if they want to do it or not. So we're not forcing it on them. We'll do a call out on the radio and ask who's available, who's in the area, and then we'll ask them to pick up additional routes. And and they want to help each other out. So it's usually not too much problem getting somebody to help out. And again, because they can earn overtime in order to do that.
And these additional routes, are they close to where their original route was? Do they have to come back, drop off all the kids, and then go pick up more because the bus is full?
Typically, yes. Typically, it's right within their area. Like I said, the office staff will call out, the dispatch will call out and say who's in the area, who's close by, and then they'll ask them to pick up those additional routes. Right.
When it comes to someone calling out, I know the district has said, there are policies in place, but when a bus driver calls out in the morning, what's that chain of command? Who do they tell, and then who tells who?
So there's a good systems we have in place. So we actually have the routes out in the mornings when the bus drivers come in, so they can pick up their routes, make sure, and they know what routes they're covering, but we have to they also pick it up and they sign in the morning, so we know if a bus driver is not in. So if it's at 5:30 in the morning and the bus driver was supposed to check in at 5:15, we know at 5:30 that bus driver is not there, or we know shortly thereafter, so we can assign somebody else to cover that route, either an office staff member to pick up the route, or a mechanic to pick up the route, or we can have another bus driver double up for that day. So we know it pretty much immediately in the morning when the bus drivers are not available to pick up their routes.
Okay. And when a bus driver calls out, who do they call?
No, they call the office staff, the dispatchers in the office.
Okay, and then from there, where does that go?
So they make arrangements, the office staff will make arrangements to make sure that route is covered. And if the bus is going to be late, because it doesn't necessarily mean the bus is going to be late, there may be somebody else that can pick up that route, maybe a mechanic or somebody else, as I mentioned. But if the bus is going to be late, and then we need to notify the schools or the parents to make sure that they're aware of it as well.
So when a bus is going to be late, because maybe a bus driver's sick or some sort of mechanical issue, what is that chain of command for communication to get that information to the parents?
Yeah, so first of all, we have a system called TransInternet, and that's where we have all our routes on that information, all which students are riding with buses, what time the buses are picking those students up. And that information, there's a place on that TransInternet where we can identify any situations that we have with a bus. For example, if we have bus 21 picking up route 18, we make a notation on that. So that information it becomes immediately available to the schools, so they can see that as well. Each one of the schools has been issued an iPad, so they can see right on that iPad that change has been made, so they know right away. that school will typically then reach out to the parents to notify them if there's going to be a late bus. So that's the general process that we have.
Okay. And who at the school has access to that iPad with that information?
Yeah, there's usually somebody administrator at the school who has that information. It's usually an assistant principal, or it could be somebody else that the principal has assigned to that responsibility.
So after you guys deal with the mechanical issue or someone calling in sick, and you guys put that information into the transition net, then it goes into this iPad that also has access to that program.
Right. It's available to people. Right. The iPad is one way they can see that information. They can also see it. The secretary or the principal can see it at their computer too. It's the same information.
And then from there, they're in charge of disseminating that information.
Right. We usually leave it to the school to reach out to the parents to let them know if the bus is going to be late.
I know there have been a couple instances where the bus hasn't shown up or it's been hours late and parents weren't notified. So in that situation, do you know where the disconnect would have been?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with situations where it's been hours late where and parents haven't been notified, but if that situation does occur, then there may have been a breakdown in the situation. There may have been a breakdown in communication. But if that ever happened, then people need to notify us so we can fix the situation. So one of the things that we also did, we started probably over a decade ago, we started a call center so that people can reach out to us and notify us if they have a problem, they have a challenge, if the child has been standing outside for a while and they don't see the bus showing up, they can reach out to us and then we can give them information. So it's not just proactive, but we also have available resources so we can react to parents or students when they call into our call center, so we can give them the latest information as well.
And do you guys get calls from parents and students often about this kind of stuff of this nature?
We get calls, yes. we have like I said, we have a call center. The staff, but I think about 6 or 7 people, and they give me some phone calls. Usually it happens during the early part of the year where things are more challenging. We're working out details. Maybe some students haven't done the register to ride, so we haven't got the right count on the buses. As the year goes on, it gets progressively less and less, but we continue to staff that call center so we make sure that we're responsive to our parents.
And I know we're through more than halfway through the second semester. So how are things right now? Things
are much better. Yeah, I mean, we right now we're probably a net increase of about 40 bus drivers since the start of the school year. You still have bus drivers retire and leave for other reasons, but we're up about 40 bus drivers. We continue to have bus fare, job fairs every week, every Thursday. Put a little plug in there for that because we're continuing to hire. Our board has made great strides in terms of raising the salaries. So the minimum starting salary is now up to $20 an hour, and we give a $1,000 bonus for bus drivers. So things are getting better. We're not where we want to be yet, but things are getting better.
And what's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal, I mean, one of the things what we want to do is, we talked about earlier, we're off camera, about a new system that we're putting in place called Here Comes the Bus. That's going to be a new technology that's going to allow parents and students to see where the child's bus is, whether it's in the morning to pick them up or it's in the afternoon to drop them off for home. That's going to be a game changer. They'll be able to download an app and see that information on their app. We're also implementing universal student IDs. So every student is going to have an ID, and they're going to be swiping on and off the bus. So parents will have information. They'll know. The district will know when that student got on the bus and when they got off the bus, in case they get off on the wrong stop or whatever the case may be. We have that information as well. So we're looking towards technology to help us get better and better and improving our communication with parents and making sure that they know that their children are safe.
And why did you guys specifically choose the Where Comes the Bus app?
Yeah, the Here Comes the Bus app was chosen because it's part of a suite of applications that we use with a company called Synovia. They provide us with our GPS system, but also provides a lot of different tools for us as well. So it provides us, we're implementing a pre and post trip inspection. It also is going to be able to provide us with turn-by-turn directions for our bus drivers. Just like any parent uses now with their phone. They'll have that, our bus drivers have that turn-by-turn direction. And that's important too, because when we have a substitute driver who's riding the route for the first time, they may not know exactly where to go. So that information is going to help them. So we're implementing all this kind of technology, and it's really going to be helpful to make sure that our parents are well informed about the safety of their children.
Definitely. And you were mentioning some substitute drivers. I know that they don't know these specific routes like the back of their hand, like the person who does this every day. Does that contribute to some of the buses being late sometimes?
That does, yeah. If we have a bus driver who has never driven that route before and they're becoming familiar with it, yes, they have to reach out to somebody to find out what the route is. Now, usually either in the morning or the afternoon, the route will be handed to them if they're substitute drivers, so they'll see that information and be able to determine where they need to go. But changes do happen all the time. And I just want to point out to your viewers that a lot of times that the reason why a bus may be late has nothing to do with there not being a bus driver. It could be that there's an accident on the road. I mean, people experience traffic here in South Florida is growing tremendously, and everybody knows that. So there are often times where there's an accident or there's just congestion for a reason, or police action or something like that, and that can contribute to buses being late as well. We have a number of, at the beginning of the school year, we remind parents or remind drivers out there to keep an eye out for school buses, because a lot of our buses get hit from behind. A lot of people not paying attention to where they're going, and they hit the bus, and now we have to pull that bus off of the route in order for investigation to happen, and that could be contributing to a late bus as well. So there's a variety of reasons. So our bus drivers do a great job of trying to keep our kids, and they do a great job of keeping our kids safe. But we need our parents and other drivers out there to make sure they're paying attention to our buses out there too.
Do you have any specific schools in the district that you know of that do a really good job of making sure that, if something's going wrong with the bus route or anything like that, that their parents are notified about their students going to be late for the day? And if you do, I'd love to hear about it, because we'd love to.
Yeah, I mean, I think Royal Palm School is one of the examples of the schools that does a great job. Dr. Cochran does Royal Palm School is a special needs school, and so we have a lot of special needs buses that go to that school, and they do a really good job of making sure our parents are notified about when the buses are going to be late and when their child's going to be home. So I would use that as a prime example of the system working really well at Royal Palm School.
Well, good to hear. And I mean, they use the whole system that we were talking about, right?
They do. They refer to TransInternet. They know when the information needs to be updated, like a different driver is covering for somebody else. They do reach out. We have a system within the district called Parent Link that does blast phone calls out to parents. They utilize that system, and several schools do the same thing. So they'll just be able to, with Parent Link, you can just identify students, all the students that ride on a particular bus, and then just notify those students, and not every student every parent in that have a child going to that school. So there's some great tools that we have now, and they're going to get better as we get in with Here Comes the Bus.
And Parent Link, you were talking about that. So when it comes to a parent getting contacted through that, do they have to physically sign up for that, or is that something that's automatically they're enrolled in as soon as their student is enrolled in school?
They're automatically enrolled with it. It's tied to our student information system. So our student information system has a lot of data on students, including what buses the child rides. And so it's easy for us to segment that list and reach out to those parents.
Well, and we were talking, we are in the second semester. We're a little over halfway through the second semester. And while it's awesome that this app is coming out, and it's fantastic that parents are going to be able to, track through the app, what kind of things are you guys working on right now to alleviate some of the problems currently?
Yeah, the best thing we can do is continue to hire, right? So the more bus drivers we have, the less challenges we have of making sure we keep students on time. And as we come into the heavy testing part of the school year, that's really important. We need to make sure we have bus drivers assigned to every route, regular bus drivers to regular routes, so they know their routes and they can get the students to school on time. So that's the biggest thing that we could do. But we just rolled out, I mentioned the iPads that we provided to the schools. That was something new that we just implemented just recently. So now that the person at the school in the bus loop can look at that information rather than going back or calling back into the office, they can have that information right there. They can keep the students informed right as they're waiting for the buses. So that having that kind of real live information, that's been a tremendous help to us, and I think it's been helpful to the parents as well.
That's awesome. When did you guys roll that
We just rolled that out just the end of last year. We issued actually it was the beginning of this year that we handed out those iPads to the schools. So now they have that information in their hands. They've always had it, but it's been in the office. Now having it at the bus loop makes it even more real time and more available to the people who are directly interacting with the bus drivers as well as with the students in the bus loop.
Because the people who have access to that information, I mean, I remember my principal and assistant vice principal were the ones greeting me as I was coming in from the bus. So it's nice to have that extra, oh, we can look right here and we're able to, send out a blast from here.
Yeah, with this information, with TransitNet, which I think is a very powerful tool, I mean, you can look on there and you can see that the bus is, 15 minutes away or 20 minutes away, or if it's further away, if you don't see it, or if it's further away, they can call up right there to the transportation facility and say, I don't see bus 32, it should be here in 10 minutes, but I don't see it. Can you give me an update? So that having that ready access to information, that helps everybody communicate better and make sure that parents can feel comfortable that their children are being looked after.
And I mean, if there is a disconnect, then you guys are sending this information off. So if there is a disconnect and a parent doesn't hear about it, what happened?
Yeah, if the parent does not hear about the bus, and we don't, let's be clear that sometimes a bus is maybe 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, so we're not going to reach out for every little thing like that. But if the bus is going to be 45 minutes late or an hour late for some reason or another, and then if there's a breakdown in communications, we want to fix that so it doesn't happen again. So I'm not going to say it doesn't happen or ever happens, but we want to know about it so we can know and make sure we do some retraining with people to make sure that we can fix those problems and it doesn't reoccur.
Before you guys roll out this app, like your best solution is to hire more drivers. Are there any other solutions that you guys are currently working on to try to alleviate some of the problem?
So besides hiring more drivers, besides hiring more drivers and implementing better technology, again, we ask for patience from parents. We do offer the opportunity to reimburse parents if they need to drive their students to school themselves. I mean, we take advantage of that, particularly with students who live far off a route. We have some situations with homeless students who are able to go back to their home schools even though they may not live close to it. But we'll pay a parent, we'll reimburse them if they want to drive their student to school themselves. So that's a good option that we encourage parents to take advantage as well. Because we know not everybody has that, they don't have the time or a vehicle to do that. But if you have a vehicle, if a parent does have a vehicle and they're interested in getting reimbursed for driving their child to school, and this is for students who live outside of 2 miles of their school, so they have to qualify for it. We will look at that situation and see if it makes sense to do that instead of trying to load them onto another bus that may already be crowded or is not available, or it takes too long to get the child to school. So I encourage parents to look at that as a possible option.
So that option, is that only an option if the bus is late or that kind of thing, or is it an option that a parent would sign up for at the beginning of the
Yeah, that option is available, so you can sign up for the beginning of the year, or if you can only do it for 2 months or a couple of weeks, that option is available for parents to do that. So you don't have to commit to that for an entire year, and you don't have to, and it's not really for the one-offs here and there. It's really for a sustained period of time that we would like to do that for. So we can count on that, and we can count on that seat being available for another child if that parent's going to drive their child to school or pick them up.
So it's really only for those who are going to be consistently picking their kids up.
Yes, that's for those who are going to be consistently dropping off and picking up their students. So. Yeah.
And about how much is that in reimbursement?
Yeah, I forget what the exact amount is, but I think it's the federally standard covered rate for transportation. But I'll have to get back with the exact amount. Yeah.
And is there a specific area that a parent would apply for that?
Yeah, they can go to the transportation website on the school district's website and identify that they're interested in doing that. There's an app that we have called Register Your Ride. And on that Register Your Ride, that's where we ask parents to identify how they're going to get their children to school, whether they're going to take the bus or they're going to drop them off themselves, or if they're looking for reimbursement, we can identify that in that app as well.
When it comes to kids not being picked up sometimes or being picked up late, and a parent might not be notified, but they're notified at the end of the day that their student received a tardy, what kind of policies are in place to kind of I mean, does the student actually get a real tardy if the bus is running late, or?
Yeah, I can't speak to the particular policy at each one of the schools, but overall, the student should never receive a tardy if the bus was late for some reason. And again, the bus could have been late because of an accident or whatever the case may be. But yeah, if a student is late, I don't see any reason why a student should receive a tardy for that.
And I know you're in transportation, but when these kids are late and missing class, and sometimes it may be consistent, sometimes it's not, but if they're missing this class, what kind of things are in place to try to help them catch up so that they're not missing out on this crucial learning information for tests that are coming up?
That's a better question to ask to the academic folks, yeah. But I would say that if a bus is consistently late to school, and to me, consistent is 3 days in a row. If a bus is consistently late, then we need to be notified about that. Now, we should know about it because, as I mentioned, we have this internet system so that we have reports that will identify if the bus is arriving on time or if it's arriving late. But if for some reason we miss that, which I don't see happening, but if we do miss it, then the school needs to notify us about that so we can make adjustments. There's typically ways that we can make adjustments. When we have hundreds of routes that we're running, there's usually a way for us to maybe add a couple of stops to another bus or drop off some stops to one bus that may be running late, and through those little adjustments, we are able to bring buses schedules back on time. So we do that throughout the year. We consistently making adjustments to make sure that, one, the buses are not overcrowded, and two, to make sure that the buses are arriving to school on time. And by on time, we want to make sure students arrive on time so they can have breakfast if they need to have breakfast, and then get to class.
I know I've asked you a lot of questions, but is there anything I didn't ask you, or something you think it's really important for parents to know?
Yeah, I just want parents to know that, one, we appreciate the patience. We have, one of the things that most people probably don't understand is that our buses in the mornings are about 93% on time. So that's still 8% of the students that still are not arriving on time. So we need to continue to work on that. In the afternoons, it drops down to about 86% on time. And the reason is because it's typically more parents will drop off their students in the morning and head to work, and then they rely upon the bus to get them home. So there's typically more students riding in the afternoon than in the mornings. So I think we're doing pretty good. We want to get that up to 100%, of course, all the time. And by hiring more bus drivers, improving technology, we're going to be able to do that. So I do, again, appreciate the patience of our parents. Things are continuing. I think you'll agree, I think most parents will agree, that things have gotten significantly better since the first couple of weeks of school. Our goal is to start 2023-2024 school year off, with every bus being on time, loaded up with enough staff. We have a big job fair coming up on March 29th. So we're looking to help hire hundreds of employees, not just bus drivers, but mechanics and HVAC techs and everything. So if anybody, I would encourage them, if they know somebody who's interested in working with the district, great benefits, come on, work for us. Okay, got to get that plug in.
Of course, by all means.
Sure.
And I just want to circle back to this app real quick.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you guys are going to implement it? I know you plan to put it in place in August, but are you going to do a soft launch for summer school, or? Yeah,
so we've been working on the implementation of Here Comes the Bus for several months now, and unlike your personal apps that you have on the phone where you can just download it and start using it the next day, with us we have to make sure it integrates with our student information system, and then we have to make sure the information is protected so we protect the student information, right? We have students with different custodial rights and information, so we have to make sure all that is safe. So we've been doing that for the last several months. And now we're in the process, we're about ready to start doing some piloting of that. As you mentioned, we'll do some piloting before the school year starts. I think it'll be over the summer as well. I don't have the exact implementation schedule. And by August of next year, we're looking to have it fully rolled out.
Do you guys have any specs of the app and like some test runs that you could share with us or anything like that?
I don't have any data that I can show you that's about what we've done so far, but anybody can they can Google Here Comes the Bus, and they can see what the app does for them. It's being used by several districts across the country with much success, and we look forward to making sure we have a great successful rollout as well.